on KAPA Hawaiian FM 100.3, 99.1, and online at kaparadio.com. Another live edition of the KAPA Cafe. Sitting with us today, as promised, Kuana Torres Kahele. Aloha kakahiaka, Kuana.
Aloha kakahiaka ka'u.
You know, we've this week wanted to share with you that we've been talking about this interview all week long. But a few weeks ago, we've been starting our Worldwide Wednesdays, and many of our Kuana, I would say, followers are been waiting for this CD, Nani Waiʻale. We had to actually send them the link because I was trying to tell them, I'm not your manager and I don't sell CDs. Tell us a little bit about this project.
It's something different for me. All the past albums I've done, from my first solo album, Kaunaloa, leading up to all the different island chain albums. It's been a lot of the albums, those previous albums were tailored to something, especially the island chain albums. And, it was pretty easy. I really didn't have to think about it. It's all albums. I mean, mele pertaining to each album, and the title track, or the name of the album is pretty much the name of the island. So that was all easy. And then when it came around to Nani Waiʻale, I was power with the island stuff already at that time. So I really had a hard time thinking what was the focus of this album, what was the reason. What was the reason? Because every other album previous or prior had a reason or was tailored to something. So I didn't really know what I was doing. And I actually started the album back in 2019. And then COVID happened, and then I stopped for the whole year. And I hadn't resumed up until the ending of 2020, going into this year. And I guess it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because as I took that whole break off, but I hadn't even thought about my unfinished album at the time. And then when I started to think about it again, I said to myself, I better get this thing done. Then I started, all kinds of stuff happened, from changing of songs to jumping from one studio to another studio. There's so much change happening in my life in this short amount of time, all revolving around the creation and finishing of this album. And I had played around with the idea of, like, gosh, I forgot how many different names came to mind in terms of what I wanted to call this album. What was the whole thing? So I had like 4 or 5 names down, and I was talking to Mark, and I said, maybe this one, and then next week would be another one, and then the next week would be another one. And it didn't really have any connection, any pilina to all the names that was coming out. So I just kind of put something down. I left it there, and my focus was, I'm going to go finish the album. Just whole part of that, get it on the CD, and hopefully when I reach that point, something will come. And I was in the studio. I was just putting the finishing touches on a few more songs, which is like the steel guitar and the piano. And whilst in the studio, my studio engineer guy had just finished mixing a song. And so he came over and said, "Here, I want you to take a listen to this. Let me know how it is." And that mele was Nani Waiʻale. And coincidentally, Nani Waiʻale it's a song I wrote. It's a song close to my heart. It talks about my home and where I was raised, and my mama inside there. All my childhood memories is literally woven throughout the 5 verses of that song. So, being that as it is, when I went in and recorded it, I never really have any emotional kind of thing. I kind of just did it. It wasn't until I heard the finished product that when I heard the song, I think for the first time since Napalapalai, when I recorded and wrote Keanu o Waimea, I cried when I listened to the song, because I think in its entirety, it manifested itself. And then at that moment, everything came, and I knew the reason why I was doing this album. I got the title for my album, and that's what pretty much pulled it all in together. Called Mark on the phone. It's like, you gotta listen to this, and we gotta make some changes. And whatever I said for the name, cut it. And if you posted it on Facebook, take it off, and whatever. So it was a whole thing.
The whole thing. You know,
It was a
I have
thing.
I have to say though, it's wonderful because how do you, as in many of the interviews we've done with you, there's always progress. There's always inspiration. There's always elevation. And it's so amazing to come from doing all of the islands, which I think will be marked down in history for Hawaiian music, but to come away from that and really starting with this project saying, okay, well, what am I going to do, because the other thing too is that you have a lot of hula influence, and this particular project, you just want to hula, you want to put on that hula panty and you want to just hit it.
All of the songs, there's 16 songs on this particular album. And when I came, originally there was 10. And then just before COVID, there was 12. And then post COVID, well, after the lockdown, anyway, um, that brought us up to 16. And yes, a lot of songs for an album, but I was really given a chance this time around to do what I wanted, do what I always loved singing. Even just the old stuff,
Yeah.
yeah, like stock hula,
Yeah.
like Lili Ue and
Yeah.
Ali Iwana and Yo Ekala. These are old classics. But I used to tell myself, oh, but nobody will record them for settle like this guy. I'm going to record them. And that was kind of my mana'o and stuff. But I wanted this album to be traditional. I wanted it to have a really old flair, a sense of nostalgia
Yes.
to it,
Yeah.
but at the same time familiar. So how do you do that? So I just took all these old classics and I played it with it a little. I mean, it's nothing new. There's some new arrangements in there, but I gotta be honest, a lot of the arrangements in this album are old arrangements,
So
really, really old
that's my
arrangements.
question, because you're Lily Ue too. The arrangements
Yeah.
on your mele, like I kept thinking to myself, okay, how did he do that? Like, did somebody come in? Is that your arrangements? Because those, like you're saying, are classic traditional mele, but the arrangements.
So Lili Ue, for example, that particular arrangement comes from 3 tons of aloha. It also comes from mostly, I would say, the Kalima brothers.
Yeah.
When the Kalima brothers did that recording with Richard Kauhi, they recorded Lili Ue, and that's where the inspiration comes from. Now, a lot of the traditional mele on here are inspired from stuff like that, and I take that, and that's the core of the arrangement, and then I just add a little bit here and there. But yeah, nothing is super new in terms of arrangement. They're old pieces. I just brought them back.
But the other thing too, though, there's a simplicity. And I don't know, I want to say this, I'm not the musician, but the arrangement of the music, when it comes, you have when the steel comes in, there's certain components and choice of instrumentation that you've chosen, to me, brings, is it not a different sound, but it is, I don't even say it's a new sound for you, but it's a very refreshing sound.
It's refreshing but familiar.
Familiar, yes, refreshing but familiar. And the like, I go back to Yaoe Kala, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, it's familiar yet it's so refreshing. Yet when I hear certain sounds that you have in instrumentation, it takes me back to the first time I learned it.
And stuff like songs like Yo Kala, I've always loved Yo Kala. Um, and when we hear, for me, us coming from Hawaii Island, back in the day, we had so many aunties, uncles, tutus, kupunas that sang this kind of stuff. And when you're young and you go to all this luau and you remember all the kupunas singing, I just remember, I had so much aunties and people that could actually sing back then. And that's one of the songs. So when you listen to the song, it gives you that Hali Aliyah
Yes.
of that time. But that Hali Aliyah, no more on recording.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
hey,
Ayala, ayala. Looking at 16 songs, and let's take it to the soundtrack before we wrap things up. Nani Waiʻale. Um, you talk about childhood memories. You talk about your mama in there. Um, what are one of the fondest childhood memories that you have when you had that moment in crying in the studio when you first heard after it was mixed? What was the one halia that you had when you were there?
it's the second verse because the hardest thing about it's a good question. The hardest thing I still have in my life is talking about her. Only because I was raised by her and my whole life is revolved around her. Why I do music today is because of her. Literally everything I do today is was because of her. And had not been her, I would not be on this path where I am today. But the second verse in Nani Waiʻale talks about a particular memory in my childhood when my mama used to go. So where Waiʻale is, there are several rivers that join in and feed in to Wailuku, and one of which is named Kapehu, which is just on the side. If you're looking at the cover of my album, it's just on the right. And that particular stream is where my mama used to go and go catch pie. And she had a certain area that she could fill up her eke and was just right, and she would bring them home and feed us. And a lot of times when she go, I would go with her. And I can remember as young as I was, I might have been 4 or 5 years old, but I remember I was like on opihi on her back because there's certain parts of the river where she got to walk in and she's still kind of waist deep. So I still clinging to her on top of her back or on top of her opu, and I still hold her chichis for hold on for dear like I know they fall in the water. And she just take me with her and then she go catch opai and I hold the eke. And that verse is the second verse. Um it says Oili mai kapehu, yeah, kapehu comes into iku umaka, it comes into my view. And there kapehu kawahine opai miliopu i kalima, and she go under a rock and she feel, and when she feel all that is that she go into pen and she and all opai. And that's my memory. And so when I heard it for the first time in its entirety, my mind went straight to that verse. And it was kind of funny because my lip go and then your eyes start going like this. And then I got up really fast. I made like I had Hano, and I told them, "Where you guys back to stay home?" And no, she and I'm gonna walk away. And I started to cry outside. I came back. I told him, "Oh my, I so sorry. My allergies. I couldn't. I don't know what's
Oh my goodness. That's what I'm talking about. And that's why everybody who's listening, couple worldwide, you have to get the CD, Nani Waiʻale. Kuana, this COVID time, not everybody is releasing music, and you folks have. How can people actually get because you got to have you can do the downloads, which I think is awesome. It's at your fingertips, but there's something about that physical copy when you can look at those pictures. That
Yeah.
that picture on the front cover, that cover album, that picture, you got to have it in hand. How can people get the CD?
The best way is going on to my website, and it's pretty easy. It's just my full name, KuanaTorresKahele.com. And our website is pretty self-explanatory in terms of navigation. It's super easy. No more a million buttons, only get one button.
I
And
appreciate it. There's lots of pictures.
yeah. And then you just go and navigate the page and you can buy the physical copy in there. Though I must also mention that for the digital side, because plenty people like the digital, it's convenient. If it's available on all digital platforms because we never did Spotify and all that kind of stuff before, but now we are. And if you're gonna go digital, I would recommend iTunes only because the booklet is included
Oh,
in
I didn't know that.
the digital download. So if you've pre-ordered your iTunes via iTunes, sorry, you'll notice that on the track list it has 17 instead of 16.
Yeah.
The 17th number is actually the PDF for the booklet. So the download comes with the booklet.
No
Yeah.
kidding. Wow, nobody do that kind of things. Just saying.
Well, we never know. We never know we could even do that. I don't even know. We're learning.
I love it. I
We're
love
learning.
it. I love it. How about social media platforms for people to follow you and your workshops and upcoming live? I know you're doing, sometimes you do some live concerts or live, you go live, and you also are doing some workshops. How can people sign up and be a part of that?
Um, I would say that to stay in the loop in terms of what's happening with me, you'll want to check out my fan page on Facebook. Kuana Music fan page is what it is. There's two pages on there. Don't go to my personal one, which is just my name. Go to the fan page. Don't bother me on my personal page. That is purely for go ni Eleana. But but the fan page is where you want to go for in terms of things. Just kind of see what's happening, what's coming up, workshops, shows or performances. And then all of the workshop stuff is on the web page again, KuanaTorresKahele.com. So
Awesome.
yeah, we try to kind of just keep them simple.
Awesome. And I love it. It's user friendly. So all of you guys that are listening and have been begging us for no music, this is Aloha Friday. So Kuana, the CD actually drops on Monday,
March 1st.
March
Yeah,
1st.
that's Monday.
March 1st. So people can actually drop on, get it now, because today's Friday. They can just boom, 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 fast kind. Okay. Easy peasy. Kuana, it's always a
So yeah,
pleasure talking story with you.
thank you. And thank you for just talking to me because I want to talk to my cat and Mark is all I talk to.
And
It's
you
so
know what?
refreshing to talk
It's
to somebody else.
you know what? It's refreshing for me to have adult conversations because my conversations are with the 5-year-old K-pop king.
But he's so
Mahalanui.
cute, though.
I tell you,
So
he's full. He's full of life. He's full of life.